Liana Lippert on the attack at the end of stage 6 of La Vuelta. We've got sharp hills. Could Mariana Vos survive for the sprint? Could her team bring it to a sprint from Becerril de Campos to Baltanas? This has been pretty good Vuelta, I'd say, so far. We've got a big mountain stage tomorrow, but this is the last chance for the sprinters or the versatile sprinters. Uphill kick after a right-hand corner. There was a breakaway when TV coverage started. Visma went in the break and refused to cooperate, so that they wanted it to be a sprint for Vos, obviously, but we've got Bredevold here, Lara Gillespie, Liana Lippert. Would she or Kat Ferguson go for it for Movistar? I mean, even Demi Vollering in these sort of sprints can be competitive, and that break was brought back through a lack of cooperation. It just kept attacking itself. Teutenberg went again. Oh, but she actually goes later. Sorry, that was a different Lotto Ladies rider. Bredevold marking as well as Guazzini. And now it's Teutenberg. Steigenga, who also gets a good result in this sprint despite going in that move. And that move actually was there for quite a while. There's a Chasse Patate with Rayo, and then the GC teams and sprint teams come to the front. The hill zone begins. The second last hill is the hardest, could be a launch pad. Visma are trying to set a tempo to block attacks with Alderman and Kladnova there, whilst on this plateau, a little bit of headwind, which isn't good for the breakaway. On the descents, it was Babette van der Wolf, who was actually behind Sarah Roy, who was in the breakaway. EF were going on every descent. It's not just Cedrine Cobol. And then this climb, 13.5 Ks to go, is where Movistar clearly had a plan to launch, and they do so. Liana Lippert, Femke de Vries is going to her wheel, but Vos, she senses danger. She doesn't wait, and she actually spends a huge bullet here chasing Lippert's all-out attack, despite Vollering being there. There's Van der Breggen in the wheel of Vollering, so perhaps Vos could have been a bit more conservative, let the other teams chase it back. She chooses to do it herself, and actually Royce is on the bad end of it. Royce is having to chase whilst her GC leaders are ahead, but it actually creates a good situation. She tries to anticipate, maybe a little bit cooked. You see how the plateau begins, and it's really strung out. And then there's another hill zone coming, and Lippert, she jumps again. Bredevold gets to her wheel. Bredevold's just such a good all-around rider that if there's a tricky situation for SD Works, she's there. If there's a lead-out to be done, she's there. If there's a small group sprint, she can win it. If there's a break, she'll be in it. And she goes, and Vos starts pulling. Lippert, Vos, Bredevold. And, I mean, who's going to chase? Does Muzic really need to chase? I mean, I actually don't know why FDJ chased. Neither of these riders are GC threats, and they don't have a favourite. Maybe for Wallace and Sprint. And now with the gap this small, should Bredevold contribute? Should Lippert and Vos invest in a move that's destined to failure? And the answer was no. They look around and pretty much stop. And so 10Ks to go. It's all back together more or less. Big day tomorrow for Van der Breggen and the GC riders. See if they can overturn Demi Vollering. And then the trains begin again. The last climb's not as difficult, and they ride pretty much four abreast on that with no attacks. And there's also, even though there was like a reasonably tricky, not tricky, but fast descent where positioning was important into that climb, it's still wide roads. And Guazzini, she's been incredible this week, despite the TT crash where you can see the bandage or the band-aid hanging off her chin. She's done an incredible job all week as a rouleur for Demi Vollering. And EF, they got a plan again, descent coming. They're going to try and launch Cedrine Cobol. And in fact, they do. And she just gets ahead of, I think, a Trek, maybe it's Anna Henderson or Diagnan. She gets ahead of her, and then Nivea Doma begins chasing because you don't want to let Cobol go. And basically, this descent stops within the 3Ks to go banner. You can see 2Ks to go. Everyone's freewheeling. They're, again, fresh for the descent. And you only needed to get your lead-outs organised with like 1,200 metres to go. And it's an uphill sprint. The last 300, 400 metres, about 4%. Imogen Wolf has got the aero helmet on. She is the last woman for Mariana Vos. Vollering just doesn't want to lose time because there can be gaps and splits in this sort of sprint. In fact, there were gaps and splits, but everyone got put on the same time. Faulkner leading out as well. We've got Ali Wollaston for FDJ Suez as a fast option. Bredevold is the only sprinter remaining for SD Works. I think Geritzer was dropped. She crashed yesterday, so she was dropped. Norsgaard, I thought, might go for a little trek, but Wolf comes next to Vos. She says, "Get on my wheel. Time to move up." We've got 695 metres to go. There's also Lippert leading out Ferguson for Movistar. But otherwise, it's a mixture of punchers, a couple of versatile sprinters. Attackers like Faulkner weren't able to get up the road because, as I said, there was no time to attack. It was descent straight into lead out uphill, and we see Wolf waiting. Vos 2 wheels back. She jumps onto Anna Henderson, who tried maybe a late attack on the left-hand side, and then slides over. Bredevold takes the wheel of Wolf. There's a right-hand turn with about 300 meters to go, and Bredevold changes gear here. She changes into the gear she wants to sprint with. She leaves a little gap to Wolf, and her plan is to take a run at Wolf's back wheel out of this corner, and she does this brilliantly. I mean, Bredevold, one of the strongest riders throughout this Vuelta, attacking yesterday, sprinting, following the move of Lippert today on the plateau, and then being in the sprint with Vos, leading Vos out. When 200 meters to go, when Vos was on the wheel, everyone thought this was a done deal. Vos is just going to come around her and win easily, right? Not so easily. Bike throw straight after the line. Bredevold's ahead. She's on the ground. No one knows who won. They called it very, very quickly for Marianne Vos, but then they went to the VAR. We never saw the exact side-on shot, but Vos wins actually by maybe a quarter of a wheel ahead of Bredevold, nailed the bike throw, wins her second Vuelta stage ahead of Bredevold, who was very impressive, as I said. Wollaston third, Gillespie good again, fourth, Steigenga fifth, after being in that counter move. Scaniak, Sluka, Ferguson, Jastrab, Osterlosa, and Wolf. Here's what Vos had to say after the stage.
We saw at the beginning, in the middle of the stage, that we had some breakaways that went to more than 1 minute. How do you see it? Do you think it was possible to control?
It was a lot of long, straight, open roads with not a lot of wind, but enough wind to make it hard, mostly headwind. So it was not ideal for the breakaway. And then of course a big group went, but we had 2 riders in with also Marion Bunel. So yeah, for us that was a good situation, but when that got close, then the final opened, we wanted to take control.
Could you take us through that last kilometer of the sprint?
Yeah, it was of course a fast run in with the downhill. All the teams were trying to prepare, but already on the final climbs it was pretty tough to stay in contention. But then I got brought in a really good position, and then Imogen Wolf again, as in the previous stage with the sprint, did a really good job bringing me to the good position, and going to the corner as first, and then Misha Bredevold opened her sprint, and actually the last 150 meters we just 2 abreast, I think. So it was very close.
In terms of GC, it's all to play for tomorrow. I know 45, 46 seconds are big gaps, but tomorrow's brutal. 2 Category 1 level climbs, 7% at about 6 kilometers in the middle of the stage. Valleys afterwards. This Vuelta is not over by any means, and I think there'll be all-out attacks tomorrow before the 10K 8% finish. Watch it live when coverage begins, and I'll see you with a recap later. Ciao, ciao.